Hey people, it's Steel Gamer here talking about two things that are major problems in not just World of Warcraft, but in all online games. And those are the report feature and the vote to kick or remove player from game. Now the reason I'm putting both of those in the same video is because both of them have the same exact problems attached to them. They're just different elements. Now, I'm going to be clear and upfront with everybody right now. I'll be swearing in this video, and I'm going to be talking very nasty because the situation is so out of control that this is the way it needs to be dealt with. So I'm going to be covering all bases and a few different things in this. So I'll give you time, if you don't like swearing, shut the video off, which is another thing I'll be using. I'll be using this specific situation about shutting the video off if you don't like swearing later on to discuss something else that is tied with this. And so, that being said, I'll get right into it. So again, remember, I'm going to be getting nasty with this and I'm going to be swearing. And the reason why is because it's reflecting how the situation itself is in the game and what's being allowed to happen. So the first things first, while players are blaming other players for using this and everything else, the real fault of this is actually on the developers for putting these systems in the game and then allowing them to be used the way they're using them instead of putting the systems in the game properly to prevent the one-sided abuse that's happening. Now, for those of you who want to try to make excuses about the EULA or you signed an agreement, shut the fuck up, okay? When you have an EULA and then you have the structure of something that the EULA says, and the structure of how the game itself is put together completely allows what the EULA says not to allow, the EULA becomes invalid. So people trying to use the EULA, well, you click not to do this, it needs to shut the fuck up, because if you're too blind to understand that if the EULA says not to do something, then the game cannot, then the developers cannot allow what the EULA says not to do to happen in the game. Okay? I am sick and fucking tired of people trying to make excuses for the assholes that are abusing this system, justifying it, then arguing with fucking people who come up with a solution to say this needs to be removed by blaming them further. This is a fucking problem. So let me explain to you how stupid the EULA is when it comes to this if the game developers are going to allow the systems or things to happen in the game to go against the way the EULA states. Let's talk about, I'm going to bring up necroing topics on a forum. For those of you that don't know what that is people get aggravated who run forums who, a topic that is maybe 5 or 10 years old or whatever, somebody puts a reply in there and basically bumps the thread up so it's on the front page again. And then people say, you're not supposed to be necroing old threads. And everyone's, well, here's the guideline for this, and here's the guideline for that. In that regard, the guideline for the forum is the same thing as people clicking, I agree not to do things in the game. Well, let me explain something that people ignore. They only want to focus on the fact that somebody necroed the fucking thread instead of actually looking at the structure of the forum left the fucking topic open in the first place to allow posting to be happened in. If a topic is supposed to not be posted in, you lock the fucking topic and remove it from public view, preventing it from that happening. To leave a topic open on a forum is the structure of the forum. Any topic open says, well, you are allowed to post in here, we're allowing this. To then have a guideline stating not to post in it is a contradiction, and the guideline is shit. It doesn't matter that somebody put a guideline up. If you don't want people posting in a topic, you prevent that from happening. End of discussion. That regard, you have assholes that are abusing the system, and then you have the developer allowing the people to abuse the system because of how they put it in there, and then having a guideline saying don't abuse the system. So let me explain here. Alright, let's start. I'm going to get into the kick feature first, and then I'll be talking about reports, because this is fucking ridiculous, alright? So the kick feature is very simple. People abuse the kick feature because they don't like what somebody said. And again, this again revolves into reporting somebody in general. So, the kick feature. I want to be clear that I'm not saying that these options don't belong in the game, because I'm going to have some asshole say, well, you said, you don't want this in the game. I never said that. What I said was, these systems are put in place improperly. So it's not that the system doesn't be needed, because yes, you do need a way for somebody to be removed from the game that's holding up the group in an instance or a dungeon. That I get. But when you have the assholes that found a way to manipulate the system that are using it 10 times and 100 times more for abuse purposes than just removing somebody from sitting in a dungeon. That is where the problem comes in. Now, anybody that's been removed for no reason, I'm not talking about people doing shit for reasoning. I'm talking about when somebody has been removed because they have a disagreement with somebody in the group, or they don't like their color, or somebody's not doing enough damage, or anything of that nature. Or somebody's just like, let's just remove them. That is abuse of the system. So when somebody gets abused like that and posted on the forum, now you get every fucking asshole in the woodwork coming out saying, well, you know, if you weren't causing problems, totally ignoring the fact that the person didn't even cause a problem in the first place. Instead, you have assholes that are justifying the people who abuse the system, thus causing an even bigger problem on the forum, because now the person is targeted. Instead of looking at, hey, you don't know what the fuck somebody got removed for. Anybody that removes somebody can lie about it, and then all you'll see is saying, well, you know, this person said this, I contacted this person. None of that shit's valid. You don't know why somebody's removing somebody. I can tell you that people are abusing the system more than they are using it for valid reasons. Now, what is a valid reason? Well, that's where Blizzard is at fault. Valid reason doesn't have a listing. It's subjective to whatever the fuck somebody wants. So anybody can determine anything as a valid reason, which in itself, accordance, fucks up the EULA, because you're not supposed to be harassing people in the game. Therefore, that automatically overrides anybody coming up with an excuse to justify what is a valid reason. Now, if you want to talk about valid reasoning, then there needs to be a list of what a valid reason for removal is. And anybody going outside the scope of that is abusing the system. Now, how do you prove that? And again, this is my point. Everybody's, well, you can't prove this, you can't prove that. You're right. You can't prove any of it, so how do you look into it? That'll never solve the problem. That is why what I'm about to say, I have thousands of people that always argue with me because they are one-siding the argument without actually accepting the fact that what I'm saying stops abuse from people being removed for no reason. Now, what I'm about to say, people will then try to get around by saying, well, somebody can just stand there doing nothing. You're right, they can. But here's the thing. That's not that the reasons why people are doing something have no relevance to the fact that the system has been put into place incorrectly for abuse open up, and then there's nothing happening. There's no consequence applied to the assholes that are abusing it. And then anytime anybody says, oh, they abused me, nobody believes them and attacks them on the forum or wherever they're posting this. And that in its turn causes an even bigger problem, because what you've done is you've pissed a person off by removing them for no reason. Then you gang piled up on top of them for not believing them despite it happening, and now all you've done is that cause that person to want to cause problems with you later on, which you then in turn say, well, no wonder people kicking you out of a dungeon, which in turn goes in a circle. So here is what needs to happen with remove player from game. The option itself needs to have the entire group removed for using it. End of discussion. Because if you are going to tell somebody they have no business being in a dungeon for whatever reasons you feel like it, and they get screwed, you have no business at all remaining in the game yourself. Whether you abused it or what you justified as being legitimate doesn't matter. The fact that you are telling somebody, fuck you, we're going to get you out of here, and screw them over without having a consequence applied to yourself is ridiculous, and that is a problem. So this is one main reason I do not ever join groups, because people are going to say, well, you've been obviously mad because you've been removed. Again, this is people deflecting the issue and then talking about only what they want to side with. So to clear something up, I have only ever been in 4 groups, and that was at the very beginning of Burning Crusade, and I have every expansion in this entire game. The reason I don't, and I've never been removed, I just started reading up on people abusing it, so the threat of removal is keeping me from joining any group. I have not joined a single group after the 4th one I've joined in Burning Crusade for this entire game at all. Here you go, honey. Alright, so to clear up, I have never been removed from a group, and I've only been in 4 groups, so anybody trying to say, oh, you're making this video because you're mad, is exactly the types of people I'm talking about. I have never been removed from a group, and I don't join groups because the threat of removal for abuse is there. And if I can go without not having end-of-game content, I don't care. It doesn't really matter to me. However, it's unfortunate that the developers allowed this to happen, so I don't get what I'm basically paying for because of the way the system is abused. Now, if I go into this stuff and then I get removed, it's basically my problem for joining it, but at the same time, I shouldn't have to be subjected to that. And if I did, what's going to wind up happening is what I just described. I'm going to go on the forum. Even if I had it on video showing I did nothing, people would still blame me. So I don't bother going in groups for that reason, and I never have. I don't join raids. I don't join dungeons after that. Nothing. Simply because the threat of removal is there. Period. So the developers are screwing me over because of that. Yes, I have a choice to make, but I shouldn't have that. I shouldn't be put in that position. Now, the only time I will ever go back into a group, and I'm not talking about joining quests, I'm talking about dungeons and instances, the things where it actually matters. Okay, so I will only go into a group if and only if remove player from game removes the entire group when it's used. Because I'm not going to be subjected to being removed from a dungeon because people are jerks, even though I've done nothing, and then have them get away with staying in there and getting all rewards. It's not going to happen. So that's why I don't join groups, and that's what needs to happen. So anybody that's arguing with me, I found that anybody that actually says that's not a good idea, they literally only focus on the fact that the group shouldn't have to be punished for what one person's doing, instead of saying, yeah, this is a problem. The one person that's getting punished for not doing anything shouldn't have that happen either by the group. So when you say it one way, you have to apply it the other, and nobody decides to apply it that way. And I have found that anytime anyone says or brings up that point or has a problem with them being in danger of being removed from the group itself, are the ones actually abusing it, because it sets it up so they will no longer they won't be allowed to be able to abuse the system anymore. That is why they're actually saying something about it, not that what I'm saying doesn't make any sense. So again, developers implement the remove player from game feature, and they do it to allow one-sided abuse, and then the person that gets abused by it gets screwed over, while the people that abuse it have no consequences applied to it whatsoever. And that's just it. I mean, this is a famous issue in Diablo 3, where if you're doing bounties, what happens here is you do a lot of the work, and then the group removes you and invites their friend in, so they take all the work that you just did. And it's ridiculous that that's even allowed to go on. So remove from game needs to remove everybody to stop abuse reasons. Now, would it suck if somebody was holding the group up because they knew you wouldn't be removed? Yes, but guess what? It sucks that you're removing somebody from a group for not doing anything, so the same applies. Now, you're going to have trolls on this no matter what way you use it, but the fact of the matter is the system itself needs to have a consequence applied for using it. Now, only having a consequence only using it to apply a consequence is a problem and where shit starts. So, until this happens, I'm not going to join groups, and until this happens, which it probably won't, you're going to always have abusers. Now I'm going to get into talking about report, okay? Now, whether the reasonings for removing a player are a gray area, because you can justify what is and what isn't valid. There is a small list of valid reasons you would report a player for. Okay, so first off, I don't care what the EULA states about language. You are allowed to type language into the chat, and there is a numerous amount of features already in place to stop a person from seeing the stuff in general. That is why the EULA doesn't apply. It doesn't matter whether you click not to swear. There are methods and systems in place to prevent one from seeing what is in their own chat, which brings me to the second point. You have to manually go into the damn options and uncheck language filter to stop having it blocked, which means you chose to do that. You chose to have it unblocked. So therefore, you are now at fault for seeing the F word or anything else, which brings me to the list of valid reasoning. Alright? I don't care what Blizzard said. Blizzard needs to get their head out of their ass and say, you are only allowed to report people for these specific reasons, and then end it. If somebody is reporting somebody for a reason not on the list, then they need to have their account suspended for abuse of the report system or whatever it is. They need to have a consequences applied. Because right now, this lynch mob mentality about people reporting people just because of this is ridiculous, because it's allowed to go on and Blizzard doesn't seem to give a shit. That is what's going on here. It's the Blizzard's fault for doing this. And that's like I said to people, reporting me for swearing in this video after I told you not to, I'm going to be swearing, and then you continue watching it, and then you're reporting me as you being a complete and utter vindictive, malicious little douchebag that went out of their way to purposely screw with me. Going into the options and unchecking language filter so you can see swearing and then complaining about what you see in your own chat is the equivalency of complaining somebody sent you a link in your email and you chose to click it. Well, I wouldn't have clicked it if the link wasn't there. Every single person knows enough not to click something in their email that they don't know about because it can infect your computer, period. If you chose to click it, that is your own fault. You can also have options set up so you can filter out certain things that are suspicious. So again, you have control over your own email in the same fashion you have control over your own chat. So for you to report a player for saying the F word means you are being a vindictive, malicious little douchebag that is purposely going out of their way just to antagonize somebody into a problem. Now, if Blizzard doesn't have a list of stuff on here, then it doesn't really matter what the hell is in the EUA that you agreed not to do, because all anybody is going to do is use it to abuse people, okay? And that is Blizzard's fault, because let me explain what valid reasoning is here. Anybody that threatens to kill somebody, like really threatens to kill them, claiming to shoot up schools, raping kids, doing all this other stuff that is actually, we can all agree that that would be valid reasoning to report somebody. If you are reporting somebody because you don't like what they said after you allowed yourself to see it, is absolutely out of control, and it needs to friggin' end. And then on top of that, it's not just the language filter. You have block. You also have ignore. You can you can reset yourself from a different chat or anything else. If you are going to stay in general and you have unchecked your options and you refuse to ignore somebody and then you report somebody, you need to be removed from the game. Blizzard literally needs to stay. You need to stop reusing the report system for this because everything in place contradicts the EULA. Everything. So people try to say, there's added security. If you shut the fuck up, I don't want to hear about this, okay? You have ways to stop yourself. You're purposely undoing it and then complaining you're seeing it. This is like watching TV and complaining hearing the word shit on the TV, which is going all over the place now. Okay? I don't want to hear this, it's a family game shit. This is an M-rated, this is an adult-rated game. Okay? I don't care what anybody says. There's alcohol in it and everything else. So, therefore, anybody saying, well, this is a 13-year-old, I have parents, shut the fuck up. Those are excuses. Reporting anybody because you don't like language is you being a douchebag, and then that's it. So let me explain about the word cunt. Alright? Cunt is in the Scrabble dictionary. It is actually a word. It's only offensive if you choose to allow it to be offensive. If I walk into a delicatessen and ask for my sandwich, cunt, they're going to get all offended. What? Because I asked for it cut up, not toasted? I mean, this is the issue that we're dealing with. Because it's no more an offensive thing than I can say it's not offensive more than you can say it is. So it doesn't matter what your opinion is. There needs to be an entire list of valid things that are reusable for the report system. And if you use the report system for anything else other than that, you are causing a problem. And Blizzard doesn't have the balls to stand up to you and say, you're not supposed to be using the report feature for this. You don't like language, block the person. You chose to uncheck. Good. You chose to uncheck the filter, you chose to not block the person, and you chose to stay in general chat. How is that the other player's fault that they're swearing? It doesn't matter whether you're offended by it. Being offended is not a right. Everyone's acting like, everyone's walking on eggshells. Fuck everybody. If you're not reporting somebody for like threatening or shooting or raping or talking about child molestation or terrorist attacks, then you're not using the report system for a valid reason. Anything else is you being a douchebag attacking a player for no reason at all, knowing you're going to get them in trouble by mass reporting them. And Blizzard needs to stop allowing this shit to go on, so this is actually Blizzard's fault for not paying penalties to you guys in the same fashion they didn't put in remove game from feature, removes everybody from the game, because there's no penalties being applied to prevent assholes from abusing it. Period. So that's really all there is to this subject matter, and I don't really want to. I'm not even going to pay attention to excuses. I'm not even going to allow comments underneath this video to allow people to make excuses. If you say anything against what I'm saying, you're making an excuse to allow the system to be abused because you refuse. You only want to one-side it instead of paying attention to everything I'm saying. That's the bottom line, and I'm not going to allow people to talk in circles around me. It's not going to happen. So, Steel Gamer signing off. Have a good day, night, wherever you are.